Welcome to Homeworkology. As a community, we're making homework each and every day.
Welcome to Homeworkology. We're here with James Auer. I got that right, James?
Absolutely.
Perfect. I'm glad. That's the part that makes me the most nervous of doing these conversations. Just screwing somebody's name up, and then the rest of it is downhill from there. So I am super excited though. So you and I met in a kind of unusual way where I asked you to be a guest of ours. And if you could just tell us, so I know that you work for Shopventory, and we are in the process of building up a retail shop, bricks and mortar, which go figure who does that anymore, but apparently I'm doing it. And our team was on with you. And when I heard your story, I was like, I absolutely want to dig a little deeper into your experiences and just how you've come to just kind of navigate the whole working from home experience. So tell us a little bit about what you were doing prior to COVID.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Really excited for this. It's been a couple of weeks of just anticipation. So yeah, really looking forward to it. Yeah, so prior to COVID, I had been working in restaurants. So to go probably like way too far back, I went to school for marine science geology, and then right after school, jumped into restaurants with my sister up in Alaska, and decided that
in Alaska.
Yeah.
You didn't tell me that part.
Yeah.
I just keep unfolding layers, man. Alaska.
Yeah.
Okay.
My sister had been in seasonal restaurant work for a really long time. So for like 5 or 6 years, 4 of which I was in college, my sister was doing summers up in Alaska, a little town called Skagway that runs off of cruise ships basically for 4 or 5 months out of the year. And then she did her winters down in St. John's. And so, I'm going through college. I was good at marine science geology and I enjoyed rocks, which connotationally didn't really make sense, but I was good at it. I liked it, whatever. But I also really liked the, let's just say, social aspect of college. So, I was a good student, but it was also like, it was a really tiny private art school, super hippie, crunchy. We had a beach on campus, and I liked to party. So right after school, much to
but that's a skill set, by the way. There's a skill set. So you're building all these yeah. All right.
Yeah. Well, see, I went to school, and the science part of it and everything was great. And then I was also on an improv team there. And so I was like the captain of that, and I really just spent 4 years. So I was like, I'm here for improv, which my parents didn't really like.
Right.
But it was fun, and building those social skills, absolutely, and storytelling ability, whatever. And then right after graduation, or leading up to graduation rather, much to the chagrin of my academic advisor, this amazing woman, she actually is still in our lives today. Maybe we'll touch down on that later, whatever. But I told her that instead of getting an internship like all of my peers, I was going to go cook in a restaurant up in Alaska with my sister. And she was like, "What are you doing?" But
how do we marry the marine biology with the cooking? And I hope it's not the fish.
No, absolutely not. That we just totally left that in the rear view, to be totally honest. I mean, I sometimes regret it a little bit, but we paid a lot of money for the social experience, and definitely have that piece of paper that says I did college, right? So that's a neat thing to have, and the alumni program was good there, whatever. But yeah, that started my illustrious career in restaurant kitchens. So did that for a bit in Alaska, then went to Massachusetts, where I just kind of palled around in some pubs and really small mom and pop restaurants. And then got sick of doing that, and I threw my life in my car and drove down to Florida for an alumni weekend, then had to get a buddy that was traveling with me back up to Boulder for a coding class that he was taking. And then I just decided to stay in Colorado.
Okay.
so that's how I got to Colorado. And then I kind of went to a somewhat elevated restaurant scene there,
Okay.
you know, kind of like fine dining, I would say. And I
How
loved it.
long
I
did you
loved
do the
it.
fine dining thing? How
Say
long,
that again.
how long did you do the fine dining thing?
Probably for like 2 years,
Okay.
something like that. And it was fun, you know, I was really good at it. Like I was saying, I absolutely love restaurants. Like I'm a restaurant person through and through. Everything from back of house I loved all the way up to like working in the front of house, like bartending, serving. I didn't think of it as like, I'm a server in a restaurant. It's like I sell food and I sell ambiance and I sell
Yes.
things, you
And
know?
experience, you sell the experience. So
Yeah.
where in the country do you think, like, who has the best restaurants? Like, where's the best restaurant scene?
It's
I'm
gonna sound a
biased.
little
I do have
crazy.
an opinion, but go ahead.
Okay, this is gonna sound a little crazy, but Portland, Maine.
Okay. I've been to Portland,
Yeah.
Maine. How about that? So I
Okay.
would
Right
not
on.
argue with you.
Yeah.
I would
They've
not,
got
I
something
would not
cooking over
argue
there.
with you. Yeah.
Yeah. Where
I would
would you
not
say?
argue. Philadelphia.
So that okay, well, yeah, obviously
Yeah.
it makes sense.
Uh-huh. Right.
Okay.
But no, even without that, because I say a lot of not nice things about Philadelphia too. But I would say, and it's funny because we've recently moved out of the city and to the burbs, and there's a lot of great things about, you know, trees and nature and all the rest of this that surrounds us. But one of the things that we desperately, desperately miss is just inspiring cuisine. And
Mm,
yeah, we're just surrounded by, we were driving the other day and just counting the chain restaurants. So
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I'm feeling that right now, honestly. I'm not talking any trash about Utah, specifically,
man,
but
you
like,
just jumped ahead of my story. Look at you.
I'm sorry. I mean,
Let's get back on track here. So you
okay,
were
okay,
working in the restaurants and
yeah,
you were into the fine dining scene. And
right,
then, so what, take us along with that?
yeah, boom, COVID. So everything was going great. I was in a pretty top spot at this place in Denver. Had everything that I wanted, you know, good schedule and everything. And then COVID hit. And so Denver went on lockdown, much like a lot of places.
Right.
And it was tough, honestly. You know,
Did
it
your
was
restaurant
scary.
just close altogether, or did they try to like segue into like, I mean, at some point, some restaurants just couldn't do like the delivery Uber thing or whatever.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to be in a restaurant that was part of a pretty successful restaurant group called Edible Beats. We'll shout out to them. They're great. The CEO is a guy named Justin Cucci, amazing guy, super smart, a really good businessman and cool concepts for his restaurants. But basically what they did is we all of a sudden got this email and everything was shut down,
Mhm.
and then everybody was on furlough for I think it was 2 or 3 weeks. And then after that 2 or 3 weeks, we got another email that was saying that they were opening up for to-goes. But it was on a volunteer basis. So really the two options were either collect your unemployment and not work, or go ahead and like sign up for these shifts that were like 4 hour shifts, basically just bagging to go food and manning the phone and like Uber Eats tablets, basically, and other delivery platform tablets. And I hung tight on it for a second, both because, you know, I was talking to my parents and my extended family, and everybody was really freaking out. My parents didn't want me to work because of
Right,
COVID thing.
right.
Um,
The
and
risk.
then the risk, exactly. And then I had spoken with a couple of coworkers who had decided to take those shifts, and they were just saying the horrors of those shifts and how terrible they were. They were basically like, I mean, from the aspect or perspective, I guess you'd say, of the people that decided to work, it was like, okay, they were making us deep clean the broom closets and stuff like that. But looking back on it, it's like, yeah, they were trying to give you hours
Yeah.
and like, you know, make sure that you were
The
still
way you
working.
could work, right.
Exactly. So I never ended up actually taking any of those shifts, and there was no harm, no foul. Didn't make me look bad to the company. That was very clear to us in the emails. And so what I ended up doing actually after about a month and a half of, as I like to say, doing my darndest to keep Jameson in business. So after a little bit of doing
And
that,
everybody, right?
yeah. I ended up actually wait, really side note, funny story, I think. So in Denver, they shut down all businesses that weren't essential businesses, right?
Yes.
And so originally they had their list of essential businesses. And so they put out something that said, okay, all dispensaries and liquor stores are not essential businesses. They put that out, and
There's
then with like 2 hours, they repealed it because they just had like lines around the block of every single dispensary, every single liquor store. So I thought that was just like a hilarious.
Well, let
Like,
me
yeah.
tell you, they're smarter in Denver than they were in Pennsylvania, because it took them a good couple of, I feel like it was at least 4 weeks or so where people were just like driving over to Jersey or Delaware or wherever they could go.
Ah,
And I remember like people just like joining their resources together. So one person would do the liquor run this week and that weekend. I don't know what that makes it sound like, but yeah, that first couple of weeks, everybody thought this is going to pass. And so they just wanted to hunker down for a minute, not realizing the long-term impact of COVID. So once you realize that you and Jameson was not a sustainable plan, then what did you do? What happened?
So I had an outside source of motivation to get going. I had one of my really good college friends who had been working in Yellowstone for the previous like 3 or 4 years. He called me, and he was just tramping around the southeast, and he's like, hey, I need to go to Yellowstone to get my stuff because I can't work there this summer. So he came through Denver, stayed for like a week, and then he was like, hey man, would you mind if like you drove me up to Yellowstone? And I like put down my handle of Jameson and I was like, what are we doing still here, you know? So we ended up going on like probably a month and a half long road trip. And it started in Yellowstone.
Were you in a relationship when all this was happening?
No.
Oh, okay. Because I was about to say, you were about to be out of a relationship with this kind
Yeah, that wouldn't have flown.
No, at all.
We just kind of took off. And like, you know, I had called my employer and I was like, hey, do you think things are starting back up? And I was really good friends with the GM at the time. And he was like, no, you know, I'll just be honest with you. Like, I'm supposed to say yes, but no. So go do your thing, you know. And this is a little humble brag. Cool. It was one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life. We got to Yellowstone, and of course, it shut down because of the pandemic. And so we pull up to the West Gate, and I'm in my silver Jeep Renegade, and my buddy Will is in the front seat. And this park ranger comes out because it's like close. This park ranger comes out and goes, "Is that William Tucker in the silver Jeep Renegade?" My buddy Will and I were the only two people that weren't essential workers in the entire park of Yellowstone for an entire day. It was incredible.
That's amazing. That's one of those things that you will look back forever on. So, you know, it's funny because as we have these conversations with people, they give us these little nuggets, these gems of their experiences. And yeah, it was a really crappy time for all of us, and somehow we got through it. But there are always like these little nugget stories that we will look back on and say, hey, I remember how this all came together, and it would have never happened otherwise. So when you guys got out of Yellowstone, then how did you end up, how did you go from the restaurant business or from hospitality into what you're currently doing now?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So got back from the road trip, camped a little bit more, and then went actually back to the restaurant industry. And then our second furlough, the second scare, which is where I went, you know, this
right around Thanksgiving thing. Yeah.
And also working conditions in restaurants were tough. You know, we had like these bubbles that we had to go out to. That, yeah, I'm sure they have them in Philly where, you know, it's like getting
Yeah.
cold, but you can be outside and all this stuff. It didn't make any sense for the science that everybody was talking about too. It's like, how are we staying safe? So it just didn't seem sustainable. So I decided to take a leap of faith, I guess you would call it, and start doing something that I always was told to start doing. And I always said that I would start doing, just selling something more expensive than, you know, pushing steaks on Denver vegans for however many years. And so, yeah, I decided to just start doing sales, and I didn't know where to start.
I was going to
So,
say, so you just you picked it, threw a dart and said, you know,
yeah,
I can sell
basically.
ice to, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I looked up a sales podcast, and I was going on a hike by myself, and I looked up a sales podcast, and I emailed the guy who was doing the podcast, the owner of the podcast, and I said, "Hey, this is my story. This is where I'm from. This is what I want to do. Do you have any suggestions on how to get started?" And then he referred me to another guy who referred me to a program, which is like a online or tech sales boot camp kind of a deal. And now I know, after going through and learning about sales, that there was definitely a little bit of like a referral system going on.
Yes,
But you know, hey, as is the
that's
way of the
fine.
world. Yeah, you know, everybody's just trying to get paid, you know.
Yes.
So yeah, I ended up just taking that course, and then Shopventory was a company that was hiring at the time,
Yep. And
and
that food
so
chain of referrals and networking.
exactly, yeah, a
Yep.
little partner company.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I had my interviews and just got right into tech sales.
So, because, you know, the people who run this little program of ours are like, their hair is on fire, just, you know, the two of us together, just blowing through all the stop signs. But I want to ask you a question. So you've been in hospitality this whole time. Now, all of a sudden, you've kind of married all your skill sets, you bring them together, you take the online course, and you're now moving into this space where you are working in an office, but it's an office job, but you're doing it from home. So they're not, you know, there's no corporate headquarters to go to and whatnot. So what is that like for a guy who's moving and running around and hanging out in Yellowstone and handling all the customers? Then all of a sudden you're like there, just you. How does that impact your spirit, your energy? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, it was honestly one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. And I think that's for a few reasons. The first of which, like, I'm a very big people person. Like, that's how I get energy, is by talking to other people. I'll talk to random people. My girlfriend now, I mean, I've known her for like over 10 years. Before and since we started dating, it's like she's always pulling me like, why are you talking to the cashier at the gas station for 45 minutes?
Me
I'm like, I
too.
don't know. You know? It's just like who we are, right? You know,
Yes,
and
exactly.
I don't know. I just found out that she also likes this type of energy drink. I don't know. We're just having a conversation. I'm invited to her wedding. Get over it. You know, it's like,
Right.
it's just one of those things. So yeah, having that be like a complete halt was a really tough transition. I honestly don't think that I handled it very well. The first way that I noticed that is that I stopped trying to go out after work. I was like, oh man, I'm exhausted from these like 8 hours of Zoom meetings on Zoom meetings, and like I'm
It's
not even
real, man. Yeah,
yeah.
people think it's easier. Like employers think, oh, you're getting over. Oh my God, they are like draining. Yeah, it's so interesting.
It's like a different kind of tired, you
Yes,
know.
yes.
Um,
And it's
and I
really
just
necessary to like insert like certain regiment practices, disciplines, because otherwise you can't keep that pace up. And so if you can't protect your body and protect your spirit and then you eventually are no longer productive in a way that benefits your organization or yourself.
Absolutely.
So
and
what
I was
did
going
you
through
do?
that
How
growth.
did you get out of that?
Well, I did get a dog, which was really cool. And she gets me outside every single day. That was like that. I think that was the biggest piece too, because the summer went by and it was all right, but then you hit that winter and then you're getting off your last Zoom meeting. It's already dark out, and it's like,
Yes.
okay, what do we do? And Sunny Delight is her name, but yeah, just like walking outside for like 3-4 times a day, little mini walks just to do things has been really helpful. Also getting my sleep schedule and like daily schedule on track, where like
Yeah.
I'm up at 6 a.m. every day. I do something before I sit down, and also little things that I had to adjust, like putting on collared shirts to go to work as opposed to like wearing my pajamas every day.
Pajamas, right. Yeah.
Yeah. Making sure that I didn't take a meeting in my bed or on the couch, that I was always in my dedicated office space so that I didn't mix those two spaces.
So it's just so funny, because if I didn't know better, and I absolutely swear, like, you're not like a setup, you're not a ringer, but like, if out of the manual of how to work well from home, like all the things that we're going to emphasize and encourage from Homeworks Well, you were just running it down, like having that outdoor time, taking breaks between the hours of work, and not just kind of staying dedicated at the laptop or whatever it is, the screen time. Yeah, I mean, the dog is brilliant, as long as you have the time to, dedicate and make sure that, the dog has its needs met. But all of those things, and sleep is so critical, because everybody's sleep for a minute was completely jacked up. So for you to get that back on schedule, all of those things are really, really like on point. So you can help us write the manual now. No, you can't.
It's just like, I wish that there was a manual. So it's great that you're coming out with it. I think it's going to be so helpful for people, because I will tell you, those months, a year plus that I was figuring it out,
Yeah.
those were tough on me.
Yeah.
Like it was tough for a while. I had friends that were like, are you okay?
Yep.
And like, being in sales, it's like, I'm the most positive guy in any Zoom room I enter. That's my job, So like, not actually being in that space, getting off of work at the end of the day, I was like, I don't have any energy to be positive with my friends,
Yeah.
and like, now I'm really lucky that like I'm in a place and a company as well. Shopventory is incredible, by the way, and we're hiring. But they've been really great about everything. Like, if I'm having a weird day, I would just Slack out like anybody and just be like, hey, I'm taking a like half hour to myself, an hour to myself. I was like, awesome, man. Let me know if you need anything, which I didn't think about, because like, I was always like, oh, corporate structure, like never let them see you sweat kind of a thing. But they've been so receptive to everything. Like they understand that, like, you're a human and everybody just went through that. Right.
Yes.
Which is
So
so
that's
important.
great. That's a great organization. And that's the other thing. We're really trying to have these conversations to encourage more dialogue. I think some of the companies that we've encountered, leadership may be a little bit more traditional, and they're really struggling with how to meet the moment for the current employees and what they've been through, the trauma that we've all been through, and then just helping people kind of get back to a healthy work-life balance is really all that we are trying to do. James, our time is so way up. I was supposed to ask you to show us your workspace, and then we could evaluate it and all of that. But I think that the conversation that we just had is so valuable. And I just thank you for your time, and I appreciate it. And I know that I'm going to be seeing you in months and months to come, because we're just going to expand with Shopventory as Homeworks Well expands. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast. I really appreciate it. And yeah, as always in those emails I send you, if you need anything else, feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email. All right.
Yes, I sure will. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, enjoy the rest of your day.
You too, darling.